Welcome to This Week in Solar News for the week of February 22nd. This week in solar news, there are a number of projects out there where utilities are seeking to install large amounts of solar. Just to give you a sense of proportion, utility scale solar in 2020 accounted for about 73% of all of the solar that was installed in the United States that year. Commercial solar was about 10%, and residential solar about 17% of the total amount that was installed. So the state of Pennsylvania is looking to purchase 8,000 RECs to offset to meet their renewable portfolio standard. West Virginia is looking to install Appalachian Power, about 150 megawatts of solar. And in Maryland, the utilities are looking at about 25 megawatts. Now, speaking of utilities, in September of last year, PECO in Pennsylvania, they went to a time of day pricing structure. So during peak consumption period, which they have defined as between 2 and 6 in the afternoon on weekdays, the cost of electricity will be about 16 cents a kilowatt hour. Off peak, which is from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. and then from 6 p.m. to midnight, is 5 cents a kilowatt hour. So in the middle of the afternoon, about 16 cents. The rest of the time, 5 cents, except from midnight to 6 a.m. when it's only 3 cents. So peak load requirements match up quite nicely with solar production. One of the things we like to tout about solar. There is a need, speaking of utilities, for interconnection reform. So when you create these large solar arrays, they essentially have to be connected to the grid. And that could take a long period of time. In fact, at this point, it's taking more than 3.5 years from the time that some entity requests the interconnection to the time that it can begin actually producing power. Now, this is a critical issue because to meet the Biden administration's 2030 goals, it's estimated that we're going to need to install about 103 gigawatts of distributed residential or distributed solar, about 137 gigawatts of storage on the grid, 579 gigawatts of utility scale solar, and 442 gigawatts of utility scale wind. So if it takes 3.5 years from start to finish, really those projects that are going to occur in the next 3 years already have to be in development in the pipeline in order for them to be produced. So there was a study by the Coalition for Community Solar Access, and they came up with a 4-point proposal to try and speed up this process. Some of it, of course, involves new procedures, but one of the big issues has to do with when transmission, which is from the utility power plant to the substation, basically the long haul distribution. Whenever an entity wants to add to the transmission, most times the cost of the additional transmission capacity falls on the new subscriber. It would be sort of like saying, I want to add the 101st car onto a road that can only handle 100 cars. So the cost of the expansion of the highway from 1 lane to 2 lanes falls on the person who owns the 101st car. So that is an issue that you have to come to terms with. Those people who are already on the road, already in the transmission, they say, well, just because you want to join us doesn't mean it should add cost to me. The new people coming on say, well, why should I bear the entire cost when it benefits all? So it's a sticky issue that needs to be resolved. There have been also supply chain disruptions in solar, and it's been estimated that in 2021, about 11.4 gigawatts of solar power at the utility scale was put off during that year because simply product was not available. Well, that's the news for solar. Stay tuned. We'll talk to you next week about what's happening in the wonderful world of solar.